Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for coming back to Alive and Thriving. I am Nathaniel Jae, and just messing with the lights here to see what's gonna look best. It's pretty good. So for all the live viewers, I don't look directly at the live camera. I look at the YouTube camera, and hopefully I'll be able to integrate things all into just one seamless system here in the future. But nonetheless, thanks for being here. This is Chapter 3 from Book 3, Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East, and let's get started. After the meal was finished, we arose from the table, our hostess leading us into the garden. To our great surprise, we found Jesus, Emil, Jast, and Boudra seated. We joined the group and sat down. We could sense the inaudible sigh of relief and realized how much we had grown to rely upon these people. It was as though we had fastened ourselves to them with bands of steel. Somehow I saw that this we must not do. It was necessary for us to play our definite part in this great scheme of life. In order that we might not become mere puppets, we must stand wholly upon our own feet and rely wholly upon ourselves, or they would be obliged to sever the bands entirely. Our chief talked freely upon this subject later. The evening was still young, and the soft glow of the fading sunset colors suffused everything with a luxuriance and beauty that one must see to appreciate. There was not a breath of air stirring, not even a sound to disturb the tranquility that seemed to engulf us. The bandit situation that we believed had weighed so heavily upon us but a moment before had disappeared entirely. It was calm and peaceful. There was the beautiful feeling of complete relaxation, which again must be experienced to be understood. It was as though we were in a great stream of slowly moving light. We became suddenly aware that we heard the voice of Jesus, but not in words. My only explanation is that it was a pure, rhythmic, flowing, vibratory influence that came to us in thought instead of words. The effect was much more pronounced than that of words. The rhythm and cadence were beyond description. Thoughts seemed to flood in and lodge. This was entirely a new experience. So he's saying that the thoughts seemed to just flood in and lodge themselves in his mind, and that was an entirely new experience unto him. As these thoughts or ideas came, we translated them into stenographic characters, then transposed them into words and sentences, later submitting them to these people for approval. When I say, "Behold, a Christ of God is here," I behold the God-man standing forth. I see this body as the true temple of God, the perfect instrument or channel through which the great creative principle flows and comes freely forth. Then this creation is unadulterated in image, form, and likeness. I am God. In this attitude, I stand forth the master of every situation, the Christ of God triumphant. And if you're new to the channel, just rest assured that when Jesus is saying these things, he's not speaking specifically about himself as the only one capable of achieving this level of consciousness or this level of realization that every single one of us is a Christ being waiting to fully step forth and claim dominion over our I am presence, our real identity. It is this ideal that I worship, and that which I worship, I bring forth. I can in no way bring forth God if I am does not present God to all humanity. In this attitude, man stands forth the master of every situation, the Christ then triumphant, conquering. God and man are walking hand in hand. They are one. There is but one principle, one man. One of our party thought for a moment and then asked, how can we bring forth this light and make practical use of it? One of our party thought, the answer came, let your body become a generator through which this great creative radiating principle flows. See this principle as the emanation of all power. Know that it is the principle of all power. Then, like an electric generator, your body will collect and magnify this energy until you send it out as a stream of pure white light that nothing can resist and anything directed toward you cannot harm you. I was in South America and I had just come back from a local little gathering spot, and we were living in a temple in Guayaquil, Ecuador. I was living with Vaishnavist monks, and they worship Krishna, and Krishna is another word for Christ. It's a Sanskrit derivation of Krishna La, but Krishna is a deity that Hindus worship, and Krishna is another example of the Christ identity manifest in anthropomorphic form and then demonstrated out unto humanity as the ideal for the anthropomorphic form, the man body, the human body. When I got back to the temple, there was a certain sense of tension about the air because the current president, if you will, of the temple was what's the best word to use here? A fundamentalist. And he had very strict archaic rules for how all manner of life was to be conducted inside the temple. And we were there to inject life into this temple, into this community. We were all younger. There was 5 of us, and we were there to really bring out the vibrance of what worshiping Krishna or worshiping Christ could look like if we, weren't adhering to dogma and ritualism and legalism. But, more so going forward with just full energetic expression, bhakti yoga of praise. And anyways, there was a definite tension between our leader of our group and him, because we had moved into the temple, and fast forwarding to the end of this story, he did end up being asked to leave the temple. And he was later found out to have, laundered money from the temple, stuff like that. But, yeah, I came in and he, it was really kind of dead silent in the temple. And he was the only one doing his prayers according to his fundamentalist timetable daily routine. And I just walked in and I prostrated myself upon the floor in the main area of the temple where he was also worshiping. And I laid there for the entire time that he was going through his ritual. And I think earlier in the day there had been a bit of a conflict between him and the 2 leaders of the group that I was a part of. And the energy was definitely one of the energy he was expressing was definitely one of this is my house, these are my rules, and you will obey them. And he didn't want anybody else there. He was living in this, and it was just a house inside a city. He was living in it, and he didn't want anybody else there, and that was very apparent. And that was why he had really structured the place the way that he had, because he just wasn't welcome to other people coming there. He wanted that to be his house, where he did his own spiritual practice, his own worship, and where he made advancements, you could say, in his faith and in his consciousness alone. Whilst other people, would just... He wasn't concerned with that, for that. He wasn't concerned about that for other people. I laid there and I turned myself into a generator for the Christ energy, the energy of Krishna, and it began to radiate out from me like you would not believe. And later on, it really did soften his heart. And the other 2 leaders of our group were there in the house also, and people kind of started to gather around after I had gotten up and rejoined everybody. And he made a point for really acknowledging the amount of energy that was moving away from my body, through me, and really gave thanks for the energy, because he was kind of in an angry mood while he was conducting his prayers and his ritual there that night, and I could sense that when I walked in. And it really did soften his heart to the point where he was, after that, much more open to, including everybody, being more inclusive of everyone in the group, to include some women that were worshiping at the temple with us. So it's a real thing, guys and gals, when you channel the energy of Christ, when you think of yourself as being that generator and you just hold that consciousness and radiate it out from within yourself, you can have a profound effect on your surroundings. And I'll give one other example, and it was this past Christmas where I was with a significant other, and the conversation around the table had gone from jovial and light to one of blatant bigotry and racism. And the individuals that were participating in said discourse were getting a great kick out of it, making everybody else uncomfortable. And the music had gone from like Christmas to like death metal. And I just sat back after a while and I began repeating in my head the Gayatri mantra. And I started to radiate out that pure spiritual prayer and the energy of Christ. And the effect on the room, I kid you not, was after doing this for about 2 to 3 minutes, we had, it might have been a little longer, 4 or 5 minutes, we had changed the music from metal to worship music, and you could say like the lead instigator of the racist rhetoric was now singing praises to God, and the whole entire mood and atmosphere in the room had completely changed. So never underestimate your ability to impact a room benevolently when you channel forth Christ energy. You can also send such intense impulses of electrical energy over these light beams that the body of the one attempting to harm you will be destroyed. Any resistance to this energy immediately magnifies its volume and therefore its velocity. The ones setting up resistance against it or attempting to set up their personal will only harm themselves. If they do not set up any resistance to this light, it will pour its healing balm through them as well as it does through you. It is the pure God beam and power which blends with that of another at all times if there is no resistance to its free flow. It vibrates with the highest vibration. Consequently, all are vibrating in perfect harmony and accord, and no harm can possibly come to them, as they are in unison with the God vibration. There is absolutely nothing that can harm another unless that one resists the God vibration. This is the essence of disease. If you resist the all-pervading, always present vibratory signature of God, which is love, you begin to disease. You become non-easy. You're not at ease anymore. You develop run the gamut of diseases, and then you accept that as your vibratory frequency by cutting yourself off from unconditional love, which is the vibratory signature of God. When that happens, it's only a mere step back into accord with the pure vibration of unconditional love. But it takes a conscious effort to cease resistance, to take the lid off your cup, if you will, and allow for abundance, wealth, prosperity, and unconditional love to flow into you. Thus, you become the generator of the Christ light. Do you not see how you stand one with God at all times, in this attitude, would there be any possibility of separation? The only separation is the resistance that causes the inharmony. Nothing can come near you when you stand in the holy mount, one with God. There is not a special privilege for a few. This is for all. I am the great absolute cause or source in which every child stands one with God. Thus, all live under the law, the highest vibratory thought action. There is not an inharmonious vibration that can enter this sphere, this throne, where all belong and are at home. This is your divine kingdom. You can also use this power to return false and harmful thoughts or desires that are directed toward you. You can, if you so desire, step up this white God light beam, endow it with God power, magnify and transform the energy the sender has given the thing or condition that was intended for you, then place it into your reflector and send it back to the sender with the velocity of light. This is, of course, the Aikido principle. When you return it in this way, it is a beam of pure white light instead of merely lowered vibrations, as it was sent out to you. When it reaches the sender, the impulses are so potent that it can destroy the body of the one who first put in motion the lower vibrations. It matters not whether you know the sender or the location from which it came. The vibration will return to its source unerringly. The judgment or day of retribution has arrived. As you give, so you receive good measure, God measure, pressed down and running over. You can transform God power and send it out with such force that it is irresistible. These are the beams or rays of light that you see emanating from my body. These rays are emanating from your body, although they are not yet as potent. But as you go on and use this power, allied with law and principle, you will add potency to the light and can consciously direct it to accomplish any good desire. When the artist portrayed me at Gethsemane, the rays of light went out from my body instead of coming out from heaven to me. The light is the God power generated from within my body, then sent out by the reflector. These beams go out from every body when that person stands forth as God in his divine heritage, the Christ of God, all one. This is and can be made the definite motto of all humanity. Can there be discord between brothers if they become this all-absorbing one? Now, step up this white beam, which is the God beam upon which you send out God power. Endow it with God power transformed 10,000 or 10 million times greater than that which has been sent out to you and which you are returning. This is as you decree. Then let it flow back upon the same path that the vibrations of the thing traveled to you. When the person receives this ray and accepts it as coming from God, the attempted harm is all erased, forgiven, forgotten, and no harm can come to you or the sender of that harmful thought. You are both eye to eye with God. Instead of inharmony, there is perfect harmony, for you are again one. If the sender of this harmful thought does not accept the white ray which you have sent out in all its potency, his body will be destroyed. This pure white ray will completely erase every vibration of harm or discord if allowed to complete its perfect work. If resisted, there is nothing but a perfect erasure for the one who holds determinedly to his resistance. His resistance draws to him the whole creative principle adversely, as to the square of the resistance set up. The square means multiplying the resistance 4 times. Thus, you see that as you send out good or evil, it will return to you fourfold. You are standing forth as the Lord or law, giving forth good or God for evil. But even in this attitude, be truly humble. Judge not. Place every bit of love you possess upon this pure white ray, and see well to it that it is the pure love of God that you are generating and sending forth. As you accomplish this, legions are at your command. You are still meek and humble, willing to follow on with the light. It is the pure light of God that you follow, and this light is life, love, purity, and beauty, eternal and profound. There are 7 centers in your body that can be used as reflectors, chakras. You can cause these central points to glow with a radiance far greater than any artificial light. And when you wish to send out this light, it glows with a greater potency and will reach farther than any electrical beam that can be projected. By setting all of these centers aglow at the same time, you are completely surrounded by an armor that nothing can penetrate. You can send out the pure white ray of God, so energized that your body actually glows with a brilliancy far greater than that of any noonday sun. You stand forth, Lord of creation, the Lord of hosts. You stand forth true and triumphant, yet peaceful, loving, God enthroned in your body, and that body beautiful, spiritual, and divine. As these vibrations came to us, the light emanating from the bodies of Jesus and his group was most difficult to behold, yet there was that vibrant brilliancy shining through, which resembled liquid gold. To our vision, there seemed to be an indefiniteness, while to all of the other senses, there was the solidity of rock. Again, the vibrations came. In this way, you can make your body completely invisible to mortal sight by focusing your entire thought fully and definitely upon the pure white God ray and letting it go forth from the 7 centers as reflectors in unison. Then, again, you can step right out on either of these rays and present any picture you wish to those that would do you harm. You can follow on this beam with the exact speed of light and go where you will instantly. Your body is invisible to those who do not see through and beyond the mortal. They are aware that there is something they do not understand. Thus, they are susceptible to any picture you wish to present them. That which they do not understand is mysterious or supernatural, and the faculty which is developed through suspicion or superstition is easily misled. Thus, you send out love to those that would do you harm, and the energy they release reflects back to them. So you can send forth as much love as you want, but if the energy that they are sending out is suspicion, they are going to receive their own suspicion right back, amplified fourfold, and they are going to label you as the source of their fourfold reception of suspicious energy. By at that point must seem like pain, because if they're suspicious to begin with and that energy is multiplied fourfold, then they have 4 times the reason to be suspicious, because they're receiving their own energy back multiplied by 4. Or if they're fearful and you're sending out pure love, they're going to receive their own fear back to them multiplied fourfold, thus increasing their fear 4 times. In that type of a situation, you are up against an immovable object. Lest that person, for a moment, open up their mind or any one of their chakras to be accepting to the God light, which is love, they will not see past the end of their own nose. They will not see past their own fear emanations, their own vibratory signature of suspicion, doubt, or fear. By all means, go into this world and project love. And when you come up against the angry mobs that Jesus came up against that crucified him, it is not your fault. It is happening because each and every single one of us is a center, is an antenna, is a point through which universal energy may flow into this material world, and each and every single one of us has the ability to open and close that valve to whatever degree we deem fit, moment to moment. And if we have that spigot wrenched down to the flow of a drip, 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 or a dribble, then that's all that we're going to be getting back. And if we have that thing open to a torrent, we can open that torrent to love or fear. And the analogy that I'm making here is that a body wide open to the flow of love is going to look like a fire hydrant multiplied by 1,000,000,000, gushing out energy for all people around who are equally as open to that type of a flow to receive. But if you're not open to it, and you go stand in front of a gushing fire hydrant or a fire hose, you're going to be knocked back. You're not going with the flow in that situation. And you are going to label the thing where that is coming from as enemy, bad, hurtful, harmful, whatever. And I say all of that to say that worry not if those situations transpire in your life. For the most important thing that was happening while Jesus was being crucified was that he was forgiving his persecutors. He was being the faucet of unconditional love, the fountain of youth, the geyser that was gushing forth pure, white God light and love. And it was saturating the consciousness and light body and material body of all those who are around him, whether they had the presence of mind or the openness of heart to recognize it at the time or not. And all, I wager to say, and I would place good money on it, all that were in that vicinity that day in Jerusalem were profoundly affected for the rest of their life by that one day. For they were saturated in the unconditional forgiveness and love that Jesus was able to pour forth unto his persecutors. Thus was the mission of Christ Jesus, to display such an unadulterated, unfiltered state of love as to ask for forgiveness for the people driving nails through his hands and whipping him and stabbing him with spears and putting a crown of thorns on his head and torturing his physical body. And then to raise that body up in the most definite pronouncement, display of, I am not this flesh, neither are you. We are not this flesh. And it is wrong thinking to think so. For believe me not, I will raise up this body, and then he did. The picture of harm that they have sent out depicts the lower man of each one fighting that which they believe to be their enemy, when in reality, they are fighting the picture of their own lower selves. These pictures change the closest friends into enemies and array brothers against brothers. Should this band still persist in their threatened attack and raid, they will destroy each other. They now have the opportunity of leaving the district and its inhabitants unmolested, or they will turn and destroy themselves. Man cannot attempt to destroy his brother without meeting the same fate for himself. We send only the pure white ray of God love to them, and if they resist that love with hate, malice, or revenge, they, of their own free will, turn that ray into a flame that will consume them. You need have no fear. We offer only love and have no power to compel them to accept. If the bandits come with love, there will be no conflict. Our cause is already won. At this juncture, a call came that there was a messenger approaching the village. We went out to meet him. He told us that the bandits had discontinued their raids and were peacefully encamped about 20 miles from the Tau Cross and had not harmed any of the inhabitants or their possession since the appeal for help, but that they were holding the prisoners and hostages against further resistance. He also said there was a persistent rumor that the band would attack our village within the next day or two if the treasure was not delivered the following day. The messenger brought greetings from the captive people. Every man had offered his life for the protection of the village. The messenger was told that this sacrifice would not be necessary and that he could return with the thanks and deepest appreciation of the villagers for the proffered service. Thus ends the reading of chapter 3, Life and Teaching of the Masters of the Far East. And I want to end this video by talking about the event that we all stand on the horizon of experiencing in our lifetime, and that is the Samvartika fire. And if this is the first time you've ever heard that word, please, I implore you to explore the life work of David Wilcock and specifically go into his wisdom teaching series on Gaia. I'm not sure exactly which season it is that he goes through the entire spiritual science. He explores every major world religion: Hinduism, Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, Zoroastrianism, even Roman paganism, and all other different various other world religions, and provides the unequivocal truth that there are three great ages that planetary bodies, and our solar system is a planetary body unto itself, progress through. And in our particular case, it takes about 25,600 and change years to go through one of these ages. At the end of the second great human age, we have the beginning, if you will, of the Christian Bible, where the story of Genesis picks up and takes place. In said story, we realize that there is this calamity that befalls the earth, a flood. At the end of the second great human age, the world was reset. Civilizations were torn down, earth changes took place, and the human race had to start over anew from the lofty heights of the civilizations that they had achieved prior in the second great human age, a time in which Atlantis existed, and they begin again as cavemen in the third great human age. And the reason that all of these ages take place is for one reason and one reason alone: to give souls incarnating in physical bodies here and now the opportunity to become more loving and raise thy consciousness, to shed karma and make conscious progress along the ascension path. When I say ascension, I mean becoming more loving and raising thy consciousness, following in the footsteps of Jesus to become the Christ, to become a joint heir, H-I-E-R, heir, in the kingdom of God. At the end of this human age, which we are fast approaching, and the most credible scholars on this science are predicting around the 2030 time frame, is when we will experience the end of the third great human age, at which time we will experience the Samvartika fire, translated as solar flash. Now, in this chapter, Jesus went into great detail to explain how one in their I Am presence radiates pure white light, and how those engrossed in material consciousness still emanate vibrations, but they oftentimes do them from their lower selves, meaning their lower three chakras, which are the predominant vibratory signatures of beasts, of animals. Humans, being mammal, are animals until they decide to open their heart chakra and become more loving, thus raising their consciousness a step further. And then if you want to do the Olympic work, start working on fifth, which is purgatory, or purifying the way that you speak, act, think, and move in the world. And then go higher yet to opening your third eye so that you may be in conscious contact with the I Am presence, the unconditional universe that is love, and communicate then in pure vibratory frequency, no longer needing to vocalize words to communicate with the great I Am. And then go one step further to open up the crown chakra of one's light body, at which point you are in unadulterated conscious contact with the entire universe at all times. The powers and beauty that is associated with are represented by saints, Christ Jesus, Buddha, Krishna. And Jesus makes a point in this chapter to detail what happens to someone if they come into contact with that unadulterated God light. Should they be transfixed in their lower self, their lower three chakras, thus only aware of the vibrations that they are able to send out whilst living in that state of consciousness, type of consciousness. They will experience that which they send out multiplied by 4. And the predominant signatures of the lower three chakras are mammalian, animal-like, more susceptible and much more easily aligned to the signature of fear, the vibration of fear, than are the rest of the energy chakras. Because you have 7 in your body. And if you're only operating from 3, and they're the lower 3, then you are in essence resisting the vibrations that are capable of permeating through you if your higher chakras are open. And if that is the case, then you are living out, you are viscerally enacting the science of fear. Because if you look into how love affects DNA, you will see that there are certain receptors within the genome that are they're all fully activated, they're all online when in contact with love. And then you can see what happens if certain things are changed and the genome is only able to pick up the fear vibration. Specific receptors inside the DNA are not active, which is a long-winded way of saying that if you have this much capacity to receive, but you restrict your ability to receive to this much, then you are not experiencing the entire amount of what there is to experience. And that is the visceral way through which fear propagates. When we get to this 2030 time period and thereabouts, if there truly is going to be a Samvartika fire, and you are fully activated in your light body, you are existing in the higher chakras, you are more loving, and you have raised your consciousness, then you are going to walk straight through this white light that is going to permeate our planet. And it'll be like going through a wall, if you will, of warm milk. You will pass on to the other side, and you will be thus more purified and that much more assured of the great I am, the universal principle of love. But if you're not, and you're existing from the lower three chakras, if you do stay here on this planet, you most likely will be burned. It's called a fire, Samvartika fire, for a reason. And great spiritual texts have described it as being a molten metal from the skies. So it's up to you. It's up to every single one of us. If we want to pass through this molten metal, quote unquote, unaffected, negatively, but transfigured in a benevolent ascension way, be more loving and raise thy consciousness and pass through this white wall of God light to be transformed into that which you truly are, not a physical body, but a pure white light ray of God. Thank you for being with me for this beautiful Thursday. Namaste.